I'll talk. Good evening. Good evening and welcome. I'm Eric Gaikowski, State Director of AARP South Dakota. I know everybody's kind of starting to get settled. We're going to get going here. We are excited to partner with Downtown Sioux Falls tonight to bring you the first mayoral candidate forum. We also thank the candidates for their willingness to serve our community. AARP South Dakota is proud to be part of the downtown community with our recent office move to the Steel District. But we are also dedicated to addressing issues important to the entire community, especially those that impact adults 50 plus and their families. AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that empowers people to choose how they live as they age. And we believe that making communities more livable and age-friendly helps people of all ages thrive. Tonight's forum is being live streamed through AARP South Dakota and Downtown Sioux Falls social media channels. We respectfully ask you not to use flash photography or stream any live video during the event. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the evening, Jody Schwan. Jody founded, yes, please, Jody. Jody founded the Align Content Studio in 2017 and provides content marketing strategy, production, and distribution to clients across a wide range of industries. She develops and oversees Align's original digital media brands, tongue-tied, including SiouxFalls.business and Pigeon605.com. And she provides business news and analysis to Dakota News Now and Kello AM Radio. Jody is a former editor, broadcaster, and columnist who also served as chief of staff for the city of Sioux Falls from 2006 until 2010. She earned her bachelor's and master's degree in journalism from Northwestern University and is a native of Cleveland, Ohio. Please welcome Jody Schwan.
Thanks so much, Eric, AARP, Downtown Sioux Falls. I appreciate the invitation to moderate the first of what I understand will be many candidate forums in the upcoming campaign season. So hopefully I will ask plenty of questions that are of interest to all of you this evening, but if I don't happen to hit on your topic of choice, my guess is you will hear it addressed in a subsequent forum because it sounds like the candidates will be spending plenty of time with one another. I will be asking questions, though, on a variety of topics important to the Sioux Falls community. Some were provided by tonight's host organizations, others are my own. And we also had some topics submitted for consideration by community members. So thanks to those of you who did that. Each candidate will have up to 60 seconds to answer each question. I will draw the candidate's attention to the monitors up on the balconies, and you will be able to see your response time remaining there. No time for rebuttal today, so we can get to as many topics as possible. And as you'll see, I will be rotating the starting order for each question. So we have them seated up here, yes, correctly, in alphabetical order. And we'll start with just a classic introductory statement, beginning with Joe Batchelor. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. So in 1993, I was 19 years old, and I went to this meeting about the future of Sioux Falls. We discussed big ideas like Phillips to the Falls. There's a facilitator, world-class urban designer who changed the course of my life and set me on this path to become an urban planner. And I've spent a lot of my career helping cities succeed. I have a master's in urban planning, real-world experience, and spent close to a decade leading downtown Sioux Falls through a period of remarkable growth. So I know what works when it comes to cities. Sioux Falls has a good thing going, but we are at a crossroads. The cost of living is going up. The cost to run the city is also increasing. But we can build something even better than what we have right now. And my vision is to make Sioux Falls into the opportunity capital of the Midwest. My name is Joe Batchelor, and I'm ready to be your next mayor.
Thank you, Joe. Christine Erickson.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Christine Erickson. I am a mom of 3 very active boys that I get to travel around and take them to sporting events and be active in their lives. I'm also an entrepreneur. I owned my own business for a period of time, as well as being an executive for the president of South Dakota Auto Dealers and Trucking Associations. With 10 years of public service experience, as well as executive leadership, I feel that I'm set to be the next mayor of Sioux Falls with the vision, with public service in mind, and making sure that We have public safety. We're continuing to move our city forward with the growth, the infrastructure, and really going back to basics. We've got a great thing going in Sioux Falls, and I'm excited to be your next mayor.
Thanks, Christine. Greg Jameson.
Yes, Greg Jameson. Sioux Falls is my hometown. I married my high school sweetheart here. We've been married 40 years, 2 grown kids and 5 grandkids. I'm running for mayor because Sioux Falls deserves a leader who doesn't need a learning curve. My 8 years on the city council, this is my 8th year as a state legislator, and my 30 years as a business owner, I've seen what happens when government works well, and I've seen what happens when it loses its way. I'm running to put public safety first and to ensure fiscal responsibility with your tax dollars and to manage our growth with a common sense, balanced approach. I've spent my entire career fighting for Sioux Falls, and now I'm ready to lead it.
Thanks, Greg. Jamie Smith.
Hi, first of all, thanks to AARP for having all of us here today. I am Jamie Smith, running to be the next mayor of Sioux Falls. You know, we're sitting right now in what used to be Washington High's gymnasium, you guys. Coming in the door that we came in today is how I came to school every day to wrestle here at Washington. So today we're gonna wrestle with some ideas, fitting to be here today. My folks graduated from Washington High. I graduated from Washington High, went on to Augustana, graduated from Augie, chose to stay in Sioux Falls, raised my family here, 2 sons that are now out of the nest already, and it's absolutely fabulous. I'm running to be your mayor because I do want that positive growth, all the things that everybody said before me, but I also want a Sioux Falls that my kids will come back to. I want a Sioux Falls that has the opportunities in place for those kids, whether it be through their jobs and the work that they do, or place to live, and that needs to all be done with the safety of our citizens in mind. And I just can't wait to be your mayor.
Thanks, Jamie. And David Zakaitis.
I'm David Zakaitis, as you probably guessed, because I'm the last one. And I've done a lot of work in systems analysis and computer technology, and I've applied that kind of thinking to government and politics. And I've tried to figure out what we could do better and why it's not being done now. So, like, I think, you know, practical caring and honesty and all belong in government, but we don't really have those so much. And I've traced all of this back to campaign finance. As it goes now, you can, like, if you're a rich industry, you can buy a mayor for about $200,000 in contributions. And then if you're not careful what your government does, you'll get a few $100 million back in terms of secret contracts and tax subsidies. Well, I think we should change who government works for, and we need to do that by changing who pays for elections and tax, if you have funded by, I'm out of time.
But you watched the monitor, so thank you. All right. I think they all address growth on some level or another. Sioux Falls, of course, has grown. The city of Sioux Falls as an organization has grown too. This is a large and multifaceted organization that the next mayor will lead. Listen to some of these numbers. We're talking about more than 2,000 employees in city government, a budget of $775 million this year. We're going to start this one with Christine. What do you think will be the most critical skills and elements of leadership that you'll bring to this role?
Thank you. Truly collaboration. We've seen a disconnect with Sioux Falls and Pierre. And with my leadership and being collaborative, I will bring the right people together at the table to make sure that we're moving decisions in the right manner. I don't care where the idea comes from. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you're registered to vote from. Breaking bread with people that think differently than you is how good policy comes together. So for me and my leadership, I look forward to building a team together so we can move this city that looks very different when I moved here 24 years ago. This city has changed a lot. I've grown my family here, and I've navigated the school system as well as being a business leader. It's cumbersome, it's complex, and we need a leader that's willing to bring the right people at the right time together to move decisions forward. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you as well.
Thanks, Christine. Greg?
I would use my business ownership experience probably as the #1 asset. Along with my legislative experience, you know, in the legislature, we've dealt with some very complicated issues. The prison, for instance, the relocation of that, the rehabilitation of prisoners we're dealing with right now, the property tax discussion. So when I think about the challenges coming to the city, it takes an enormous amount of effort to get to the core of the problem and to work towards a solution. So my experience working through those other complicated issues that we've dealt with on a state level, let alone a $7.7 billion budget, putting something like that together, I think I'm prepared just as well as anybody could be.
Thanks, Greg. Jamie, again, the question, what will be the most critical skills and elements of leadership that you'll bring to leading this large organization?
It's a great question, and the answers before me are good ones. I'll use my coaching background. As a former coach and a head coach, your job is to make sure you have the right people in the right position to do their jobs. You provide them the opportunities, you provide them the training and the skill sets to do those things, and then you get out of their way. And you let great people do great things. And when they do well, you give them all the credit and all the praise. And if there are some mistakes and bumps along the way, you take full responsibility for that yourself. And as you do that, you lead, and you have people that are willing to get out there in front and do more than they ever thought they could individually, because they're working collectively together as a part of a team. My job as mayor will be to have that vision, to be able to put that out there in front of them so we all understand whose team we're on and what we're working for, so we can acquire that for the people of Sioux Falls.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. David, you're up.
A mayor's most important job is to have a solid vision of what he wants the government to do. Because every other skill you can delegate, day-to-day operations, maybe you have a city administrator, police, fire, ambulance, all of that is delegated to somebody else. But if the mayor doesn't have a solid vision of what he wants the city to do, you're sunk. And I've got a superb pledge. It's on my website, beautiful plans. I've done like 200 PowerPoints at city council meetings talking about general plans for particular problems. And with a vision like that and with plans like that, I think it'll be, pretty easy to say, all right, here folks, here's what we need to do. Why don't you come up with more detailed plans and get back to me? And that'll be my job. It'd be a lot of fun. But as long as I have a good vision and delegate most everything else, because that's what you got to do with a big organization, it'll be fun and successful and work really well for everybody.
All right. Thanks, David. And we'll come back to Joe.
So I think it starts with character. You want to have someone with strong character, integrity, does the right thing when people aren't looking, in the mayor's chair. Beyond that, building on what David just said, yes, you need to have a good vision. You also need to be able to put a plan behind that vision, and you have to know how to be able to fund it. And then from there, you can start to deploy your team to enact that. And that's what I did at DTSF and produced results over the nearly decade of leadership there. And then I would say a good complement as well is my experience in urban planning. I know the policy landscape very well, and I think that that's going to be essential because you need a mayor that's not going to have to learn on the job. You want somebody that can jump in from day one and doesn't have to worry about a learning curve. And so I know how to get things done, and I think that that's going to be key.
All right, well, we're downtown. We're going to talk a lot about downtown, but let's get right into it because downtown, when you look at things citywide, produces a disproportionate share of the property and sales tax revenue that's generated in Sioux Falls. We're going to start this one with Greg. How will you protect and strengthen downtown as the economic and cultural engine of the city during your term?
Yeah, good question. Downtown is the heartbeat of most any community. And so we've been really blessed in Sioux Falls with a great downtown. We've struggled in the past. I remember back when we changed Phillips Avenue to a pedestrian walkway, and what that did to the stores. But we were always trying to do it better and make it bigger. And we've succeeded. We're really successful. The facade easement program is an important program to keep going, to keep our downtown looking great. As Sioux Falls goes, so does this region. In reality, so goes our state. In matter of fact, 43% of all the sales tax revenue collected in the Sioux Falls area funds the state. We are the economic engine of the state, and we're really proud of that, but our downtown is the core of it, and we've got to protect it. We've got to continue to invest in it. We can't give up. A lot of great work has been done, so continuing to fund that and support it is a priority.
You know, I would agree downtown is a definite priority. And as he mentioned, just when I graduated from high school down here in 1989 to where we're at today, it's night and day different. And it's so exciting to be downtown, and the energy level that when you're down here, I mean, if you spent the weekend looking at what's going on at Jacobson Plaza, unbelievable, right? Now imagine what happens when Smithfield moves up the hill, when the penitentiary moves out of there, when all of those changes happen. It's going to be incredible. You need somebody on watch during this time to clean up those spaces, to make sure things are done right. I'm your guy. The other thing, though, is that we can't forget that there are other parts of town as well. We need other parts of Sioux Falls that are equally exciting. And we need to invest in those areas too, to build those areas out so that we don't just rely on downtown being that place, but we have, what if we had 4 different zones or 5 in our city that we could pull on to do that? We do. We subsidize the rest of the state through our taxes, and I can't wait to lead us.
Downtown Sioux Falls, really pretty place. Lots of cool architecture, some art scattered around, some trees, really, really pretty. But we have a marvelous, really unusual opportunity to extend downtown. Smithfield's Foods is headed out, the prison's headed out, and the city of Sioux Falls has a big maintenance lot in the same general area. So if we get rid of all of these 3, then there's this tremendous opportunity for expanding downtown Sioux Falls. And if we do it right, it's going to be a whole beautiful, historic, new kind of downtown. We could borrow ancient, modern principles like walkability, compact development. We can have gathering places on street corners everywhere. We can have art everywhere, pedestrian friendly. What we got to do, though, is look at this as an opportunity for new, modern urbanism, and not just more suburbia as is. Beautiful opportunity as long as we grab it and do it well.
All right, thanks, David. And Joe, again, to repeat the question, how would you protect and strengthen downtown as the economic and cultural engine of the city?
Well, the fact that downtown is the most productive square mile in the state of South Dakota is not lost on me. I'm well aware of the impact that downtown has, and we need to build upon that. Downtown is one of our city's strengths, and we need to invest in our strengths. So how do we do that? It's by supporting infill development. We still have a lot of opportunities for infill development, and also, funding sources is something that has been a challenge for downtown. There's ongoing maintenance that needs to be done, and a lot of the funding that goes into the city is generated right here in downtown. I'd like to see more of it stay here in downtown. We do need to support the neighborhoods throughout Sioux Falls, but the DTSF organization is critical in the success of downtown, and so I would want to make sure that we continue to support it.
Perfect. Thanks for being so respectful of the time, everyone. I haven't had to cut anyone off yet. Final response on this is for Christine.
Thank you. So the downtown, it's said often, show me your downtown and I'll show you the rest of the community. And so making sure that we are investing in our downtown is critical. The walkability is something that we have strived to do in this community. If you look at, I don't know what's going on. Okay. If you,
It's just, don't aim at it.
It's Greg's. All right, here, let's try this.
It's your magnetic personality, Craig.
I'm on fire. I'm on fire.
Hello, hello.
You totally hijacked the debate here. All right.
18 seconds to answer that. I'm just kidding. I hope we
That's all
can
right.
reset that.
You'll get a feedback.
Just complete your thought and we'll give you the time you need.
I
How's that?
appreciate
All
that.
right.
So back to downtown. If you show me your downtown, I'll show you the rest of the city is really what it boils down to. And we cannot put our foot off of the gas for downtown. We have great momentum with Sioux Steel District, with the Levitt. The arts community is alive and well downtown. If we continue to invest in the downtown, I believe it continues to trickle. We do have an absolute incredible opportunity with Smithfield relocating outside of just on the edge of Sioux Falls. With that also, don't forget that we have that southern part of the downtown as you move down there. There'll be an exciting project being announced soon with that as well. That is, again, the smooth transition for the downtown. What is also critical about our downtown is making sure that we have mixed use. You need to be able to live, work, and play all downtown. So you don't always have to get in your car and leave. As we continue to grow as a community, we want to make sure that those amenities are right there where you live and make it as easy as possible for you to be there.
All right, thank you. Now, whoever found that photo, you can't, that is density right there. That's the goal, that's the dream, right? But we're going to go from density to sprawl because that's the next question. And it will go first to Jamie. But as we all know, Sioux Falls continues to grow outward, increasing the long-term costs of roads, utilities, and public services. So how do you define smart growth for Sioux Falls? And how would your administration discourage unfettered sprawl while still supporting economic growth and housing supply? It's a loaded question. You get it first, Jamie.
And you only have a minute to answer
Yeah.
this.
Good luck.
No, that's definitely true. We're actually running into some of our neighboring towns now when we go south in our community and hitting those. We're running out of those areas. Smart growth comes at looking how we can use our existing lots in our state, or in our city, excuse me, how we can then build up instead of out, and how we can use multi-use for buildings much more than we have in the past. Every time you drive by a strip mall, imagine, what if that strip mall had people living over it? Okay, that would be great. It would increase those densities and it would do those things that we're asking to do. But in that design model and doing those different things, we're using existing infrastructure. That existing infrastructure is already here, already in the ground, and we're already plowing those streets. So that's smart growth for our community, to invest in those things. I also have a bill that we brought for land banks that can help make that possible. We'll be bringing that back next year. And when we look at it, we can also try to redevelop through zoning opt-outs in our community, increasing the lot, how close we can put lots together in our community. We don't always need to be 7 feet from the lot line.
I realize there's a lot to unpack there. Thank you. David, your solutions for combating sprawl.
Suburban sprawl is pretty expensive and it's often subsidized by the urban core. But suburban sprawl is designed to be expensive, and it's a requirement of zoning. We've got it designed so that you need a big house on a big lot, and you better have a car because everything's here, there, or somewhere else. So the solution is to change zoning to put smaller houses on smaller lots closer together, and that will make it more affordable to build economical houses. And then we can solve suburban sprawl and unaffordable housing at the same time. And while we're at it, we can design it so that there's a mixed uses and compact development, and then you can pretty much walk everywhere, and then that will help the obesity epidemic, and it makes public transit more practical. So there's really a whole bunch of stuff that you got to work on together by smashing stuff closer together, and then you have all these problems solved all at once.
Thanks, David. Joe, your thoughts on smart growth?
So smart growth is taking a balanced approach to how we evolve as a city. And, you know, when it comes to suburban sprawl, people need to understand the trade-offs. There's going to be a market for suburban development. Development follows the path of least resistance, and that's where financing is pushing development. We just have to understand the trade-offs, and it just becomes more expensive to operate the city as we grow outward. So if you care about small government, you should care about a compact city. How do we incentivize that? I think that you know, we can do some zoning reform to make infill development easier. Smart growth is a pillar of my campaign, by the way. It's something that I know very well. There are other things that can be done that cities have done. I don't know if they would necessarily be all appropriate for Sioux Falls, but things like urban growth boundaries are something that other cities have used. But I think the one interesting tool that could really help Sioux Falls is something called transferable development rights. And that allows landowners on the exterior of the city to sell rights to develop on the interior of the city.
Thanks. Christine?
Thank you. Well, it's no secret that the suburban sprawl is very expensive. We have a great connectivity in our community right now, and we have Highway 100 that is coming around the outside of Sioux Falls. The state is gifting that to us, but what we have to keep in mind when we continue to have that sprawl, when that gift is given to us, we have to save for that. We have to save for 10 years when we have to repair that road, resurface that road. And so every time we continue to grow, it comes with an expense. So focusing on some infill development, higher density, but also recognizing the supply and demand, right? Not everybody wants to live in an apartment. People want to live in a house. I get to travel quite a bit for my current job, and I see a lot of different developments, and each of them look different. They might share walls, single family garage. In South Dakota and in Sioux Falls here, we like a 3-car garage. And so when we talk about that sprawl and we're filling up our garages, it makes it difficult to just really restrict what the everyday person wants. But we have to be mindful about that growth and the expense to it.
Thank you. And Greg, you're last up on this one.
Sure, well, thank you. Is this mic working okay?
I think you're okay.
So
Yes.
the reality of smart growth is that we need to plan for it ahead of time. Sioux Falls has done a great job of doing that. One of the biggest jobs that I need to address as mayor is replacing the planning director who's retiring when the mayor leaves office. That's a big job. And for this particular question, it matters the most. And so that extensive planning that he's done and others have done in the past, pushing out a way out in the future to determine where these challenges are going to be and think through those before we get there. So finding that right person is key, major. But my approach is really going to be just a balanced, common sense approach to that growth. And it needs to be managed properly. Otherwise, you will see extensive areas where sewer is out there, but nobody's wanting to go there. We have to be really smart about where we invest those dollars before we push people out there.
All right. So we are going to move on now to talking about some generational opportunities. These are some exciting topics. So first, no surprise probably, but with the closure of the Smithfield plant, of course, Sioux Falls has an incredibly rare chance to redevelop a large portion of land immediately adjacent to downtown. David, we're going to start this one with you. First, the vision here, and then we're going to drill down after that. So how do you envision that area shaping the future of downtown over the next 30 years? And would you commit to a predominantly mixed-use redevelopment plan?
I kind of answered this question already, but we'll go over it again. The big development area between where Smithfield used to be and the prison and the highway, Sioux Falls highway department kind of stuff. Big area. So yes, mixed use is great. Compact development, urban meeting places, gathering zones, art everywhere, trees everywhere, edible fruit trees just for fun. Yeah, that's I think that answers everything that you wanted there.
Edible fruit trees,
Walkability,
yeah.
pedestrian friendly. Since we have an opportunity to design it from scratch, we can do all of these things all at the same time.
I love
And that's what, urban planning is all about.
the vision questions are the best. All right.
There's
thank
all the
you.
goals and we can all make it happen because that's what the city planning and zoning does. Yeah.
All right, Joe, you're next up. Your vision, first of all, for the former Smithfield site, soon to be former Smithfield site.
Well, I would treat Smithfield as the centerpiece to my vision for the city. Opportunity capital of the Midwest starts with Smithfield. And, yes, it does need to be mixed use in my opinion, because, when we do mixed use, we can add more density, more infill development means that we expand our property tax or our tax base without having to increase our expenses too much. So what does that look like in terms of a mix of uses? Look, by my estimate, we are short on housing. This gives us an opportunity to expand housing. It gives us an opportunity to expand and diversify our economy as well. We want to grow into advanced manufacturing, distribution, logistics, cybersecurity, and so on. And this offers that opportunity to do that. So I see it really as a compact mixed-use development to seize our opportunities and address some of the issues that we're facing as a community.
All right, Christine, you're up.
Thank you so much. Well, first, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize part of my job is working for South Dakota Trucking Associations. One of the things that my board tasked me with was when there was a vote coming to move, to not allow a slaughterhouse within the city limits, that vote, my association led point on, and we won that vote, which really is huge if you think about it. Smithfield today wouldn't have been able to relocate within the area that it's going to today because it would have been prohibited. So we saw the vision of what that meant to make sure that when Smithfield, we knew 100-year property there, we knew they needed to relocate at one time. And so being able to lead on that issue was absolutely incredible for the decision that now we get to dream big, right? We get to dream, what could we have this be? What should it look like? I think it needs to be done in a cautious, collaborative way to ensure we're not just racing to fill it up with something, but we're making sure that it's fitting the need for generations to come here in Sioux Falls.
Thanks, Christine. Greg?
Thank you. So when I was considering running for this office, there were a lot of dilemmas to think about, transit, the sprawl, sales tax revenues, revenues coming through the state and federal government diminishing. A lot of challenges, replacing staff. And this item particularly is like just a great new opportunity of excitement. And I see it certainly, yes, maybe some mixed use could be included, but I would start it originally with a public involvement of others all collaborating to lay out their ideas, and we get to review all these thoughts and ideas of what could be used. There's some connectivity issues with this land, with where it is, and so there could be some challenges with housing and other things, but it's enormous. And my take, for instance, is think of New York City and Central Park, Sioux Falls, Falls Park. Our namesake Fall Park should be just a huge, awesome park. This land provides that kind of an opportunity for us.
All right, and Jamie, you're last up on this one.
Thank you. What a great thing to be able to talk about. Who thought we'd be talking about it today in our lifetime? Growing up towards central Sioux Falls, you knew when the wind was out at the east at my house, okay? You knew what that smelled like. I'm excited for that not to smell like that at my mom and dad's old house, okay? And we live currently still on the north end. So again, east wind, you've got that. That being said, in my lifetime, the yards were down there, right? Those have moved out. Morel's, now Smithfield, moving out. The Pen on top of the hill, moving out. What an opportunity. But as other people have said, we need to say, wow, what an opportunity. And then you need to take a deep breath. And you need to go about this in a very calm and calculated manner where the dreamers can dream and we can share those ideas. And again, it's not going to be just one of our ideas that gets put out there on this one. This is going to be a collaborative effort that makes sure that we're meeting the most needs in our community through this process. But yes, mixed use.
Obviously, it's a huge opportunity. It's certainly not one that's going to happen quickly. So I want to drill down just a bit more because when you think about it, we have a mayor taking office here in 2026. Smithfield's scheduled to end operations downtown at the soonest, the end of 2028. That property might not actually change hands until closer to the completion of the first term of whoever earns the office of mayor. So we're going to start with Joe on this one and talk about what steps would you take in the next several years to position the community to be ready to capture this opportunity, and how would you involve downtown stakeholders?
Well, I think from day one, you have to start the planning process with it. The city controls the development framework for this redevelopment. And so, it begins with engaging the community. And from that, you can develop a master plan. I look at what was created for the rail yard redevelopment, and we went through a design charrette process that went on for a couple of days. And I think they came up with a really good development framework for the rail yard redevelopment. And by and large, we've seen the development that has occurred follow along those lines pretty well. And, with a master plan, you can allow a bunch of different opportunities for different developers to be a part of the solution. It is a massive project. Many hands make light work. We need to make this an inclusive process as much as possible.
Christine, your first steps.
Yeah, so my first steps would be hiring the new replacement for Jeff Eckhoff. Having that person in place and that leadership is critical. And then from there, I think it's so important that we involve each and every person. I would have open houses throughout different libraries, different locations. Sometimes the libraries aren't the easiest places to meet. We can have them at businesses, but I think the more the merrier. We need to go where you are. We need to say, hey, dream big with me. What does this look like for you? If money wasn't an option, what would you want to see down there? And let's just put pen to paper and just get some ideas. It starts with dreaming, and it starts with involving each and every one of you to see, what do you want Sioux Falls to look like? How do you want to shape the future of our community? And with that, that's what I would start doing with different meetings. From there, you start developing a plan, and you have a group of collaborators together to start laying that out. Transparency is key. When that decision is made, it's so important to bring the public along and making sure that this is done in an open and transparent manner.
All right, thanks, Greg.
You know, Christine said it right. Hiring the replacement of Jeff Eckhoff is a paramount issue and necessary for the planning to be collected together with all the other planning that we're already doing in our city. So it's an enormous task, but the realities of keeping it open for all of everybody to engage in it is good and right, and it's how we should own our community together like that. But there are a couple other first challenges, meaning we've got to ensure that we can build on that land. Some of that land has been used in a rough way for a lot of years, so we want to make sure we can even build on it. If we can't build on it, then what can we do with the land? Once we understand what can be done on the land, then we can start talking about some of these other bigger ideas and whether or not an RFP needs to be issued for anybody who might want to build something, and go on from there.
All right, thanks, Greg. Jamie?
You know, I'm not going to disagree with anything that's been said before me, and I think they're right on that. And when they talked about the fact that this needs to not just be one person's idea, this needs to be a collaborative effort again with many of all of the stakeholders, and that's you, all the citizens of Sioux Falls, the people that will use this to have that input, and then the transparency issue that was brought forward as well. It has to be a process that people feel good and buy into. But that isn't unique just to this process here with Smithfield. That has to be an attitude around the whole city. You know, I've heard that there are neighborhoods out there that are trying to establish themselves and have these different ideas that they share, and then it seems like the city says, that's a nice idea, and then they go and do whatever they were going to do anyway. People get very frustrated with that type of leadership. What they're looking for is where they actually get to be a part of the decision-making process and put their stamp on what the city looks like. We're going to work on that together. We're going to make this the most exciting build-out that's ever happened in Sioux Falls.
This development area is just huge, and it's going to be decades until it's all built out. You know, between Smithfields and the penitentiary and all that space in between, it's going to be decades. And that's cool. I mean, that's the way cities grow, piece by piece. And, you know, I've got this vision of all these wonderful concepts, and I'll hand them off to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they'll do their bit, because that's their job. They're experts. They'll make sure the utilities are in place and that the ground's clean enough, and that all the infrastructure is ready to go. And we'll have some design contests to have a general idea of what it might look like, and then we'll watch it build out. And I think we'll plan one thing and watch our plans change through the years, and it'll look a whole lot different probably at the end, because it's just too big and take too many decades to build it all out. But that's the plan. You know, we got a vision, we have people to do it, design contests, citizen input. You know, it'll be really beautiful when it's all done, piece by piece.
Thanks, David. We'll start the next one with Christine, and we're going to talk about the viaduct. The viaduct reconstruction, another once-in-a-century opportunity. This one will shape how people move through downtown for generations. Where do you stand on its impact on pedestrian safety, traffic flow, and downtown economic vitality?
Well, viaducts are critical to the connectivity to our downtown. We are creatures by nature, and a lot of times if we cannot park right in front of that business, we like to circle the block 3 or 4 times until we can park right in front of the business. And so having that connectivity that is safe and reliable, we haven't talked about it yet today, but there is an opportunity for some downtown convention space as well. I understand that's been shelved for the time being, but that's where that viaduct takes us. That's that connectivity, and what that property could look like as well for our downtown is super important. And so the viaducts, yeah, they'll connect us. It's important to have, and truly, I think that will shape what our downtown looks like, just along with the rest of everything and the other projects that we do have.
Greg, your vision for the viaduct.
Right, so the traffic flow that goes over there needs to be controlled and managed, and it can be improved. The safety piece of it as well for walkability, as you mentioned, needs to be improved and enhanced. Some of the land that's right near there that Christine was mentioning was related to the Riverline district. And the challenge is if you have individuals who are going from a convention center space there to cross over an active railroad track and a river is challenging. And the value is of this viaduct is you keep downtown viable. You think of other crossings that we've done over the railroad tracks on like 57th Street, where we got out ahead of the development as best we could and built that overpass over the tracks to ensure safety and continuous traffic and elements like that. So new modernized viaducts will keep downtown viable.
It's a great visual if anyone needs it, by the way, behind you guys. A little inspiration there. Jamie, you're next up.
The viaduct is a project that we need to invest in. It's going to revitalize that part of the city because of the future growth and what we're going to do there. As far as what's going to go on the other side of that, I think it's good to take a pause right now. When you have this much other land in the vicinity that's come available, I think that has to all be part of the plan when you're thinking about what to do and what to do across the river there. But there's no doubt that's an exciting space that we can do something with. When we're doing that, consolidating, 10th and 11th Street into that and how they all come together, we only have a couple tracks to go over now instead of as many as we used to, right? In the river. I think we can make that area again, more walkable, easier, and better for us to all use. But it definitely, we need work there, and I'm excited for what can go in across the river.
Well, I'm glad that the local government is good about figuring out when overpasses need replaced and doing it in a timely manner and not letting them crash. I was living in the Twin Cities when a major bridge over one of the rivers there crashed and wasn't good. And those kind of things should not occur because we have bridge inspectors. Well, all right, so let them do their work. And when they say needs replaced, go and replace it. I've driven my bike over that viaduct and it's not very comfortable. I mean, I pedal hard, but there's traffic real close. And I would hope that when we redesign the viaduct that there's more space for pedestrians and bicycles and that it's safer for them. And I think I would trust our city planning department to use that vision and figure out what needs to be done and put up a good plan.
Thanks, David. Joe, you're last up on this one.
With the viaduct, I think that, well, I should say with the Smithfield redevelopment, that opens up the opportunity to create a Rice Street to Russell connection. And if any of you were part of the engagement process with the viaduct, you probably recall some of the traffic engineers saying that that connection's not going to happen. And so we have to really invest in the West 12th Street, East 10th Street connection. And that's why the viaducts are so important. The plans that they put forward were kind of a rinse and repeat. And I feel like we need to hit the pause button, reset, thoroughly engage the downtown community because I think there are some design alternatives that are not being considered, and the designs put forth thus far would not be great for walkability, would not be great for creating spin-off development. It's a huge opportunity with the viaducts, and we have to do it right.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, we get to talk about another opportunity. I mean, how fortunate are we as a community? Some of you mentioned this a bit, but I want to drill down more on the Riverline. The current city administration has brought forward a vision for the Riverline district. Of course, that's adjacent to Nelson Park, east of downtown. That vision includes potentially a new convention center. The city does own 7 acres there. We'll start this one with Greg. What would your next steps be for that property?
The next step?
For next steps for the Riverline district property?
Right. Well, the intentional beginning was for a convention center. The challenge has been, how do you pay for a convention center? Frankly, we've already got one, and it's maybe not as big as we really want or need for our community as the size it is. But the challenge with the Riverline district is what we talked about, crossing the river and the active rail track. You got a convention full of people, and they want to go down to Phillips Avenue, do some shopping in the middle of winter. That's a big ask. So the purpose of buying the land was for a public use. And so for me, in my consideration as mayor, probably to redevelop that plan. I mean, the convention center in its best location is right next to Phillips Avenue somewhere. Who's got some land they want to sell, But then the city's got to pay for it. Hundreds of millions of dollars to be borrowed or invested in. That's a big ask. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Jamie, you're up.
I definitely think we need to hit a pause on what the current Riverline district looked like. I think with the land that we will acquire with the Smithfield move, we have to reimagine what that looks like. And I agree too, it changes our traffic patterns. It allows us better ways to get lots of people in and out of downtown. So I think we have to look at that with the viaduct as well. That being said, that is a prime piece of property to do something incredible with. It needs to be also visioned when we're visioning what does this look like with the Smithfield. I think that's part of that same discussion. What goes here at the south end and at the north end when we're working on that plan for what we're going to do in the future. Getting the viaduct changed so that can happen, so it is walkable, is very important for safety, usability, and to make sure that people are there. I wouldn't also be opposed to getting that back perhaps to developers to put mixed use in that space and make it a vibrant part of the city.
Okay. David, your thoughts on the Riverline land?
I'm not really sure what I think needs to be done with the Riverline district. It kind of looked like the city was just trying to gentrify the area and take all the homeless people and kick them out and send them somewhere else and then redevelop that area. So I'm not really sure that's the best plan, especially because, $250 million for convention center. I thought we had one. So I think the thing to do is to open this up to community input to try to figure out what we really want to do with that area. And let's not forget that we're trying to displace homeless people. There seems to be a city design against that. Remember at the Bishop Dudley House, they put up this big fence around it. Well, what's that fence for? Something about kicking out the homeless people? It's kind of fishy looking. So I think the thing to do is to open it up to community input and to make sure we take care of the homeless people who live in that area, and so that it's the best use for the most people.
Thanks, David. Back to Joe.
So yeah, convention center may or may not be right for that site. It is a little bit disconnected from the rest of downtown. Convention centers work really well in walkable areas. There's a deed restriction on that land that it needs to have a community benefit. There are potentially other options available. What if Whittier Middle School was there? It could be a library. I don't know. There's options available. It doesn't have to be a convention center, but for the city to be the lead on the redevelopment of it, it needs to serve the community. And it's a great bookend to the Greenway in downtown. It's also a great gateway into downtown. So I do like the fact that the city owns the land, but yes, we need to engage the community, especially the Whittier neighborhood, the businesses, the residents, everybody that is a part of the Whittier neighborhood, so that they have their voices heard in this process as well.
Okay. Christine, I believe you're last up on this one.
There we go. We got it. We got it. we're on. Well, when the Riverline project was being studied and the need for downtown convention space, the Smithfield relocation was not on the table at that time. And so I know that there was a study done that did communicate that there is a need. What I want to see specifically is, what are we missing out on? What opportunities are not coming because we don't have this downtown convention space? Let's put some dollars to that. Let's make sure that we're communicating that with the public. I'm not sure that the public is there yet to realize the need. And so we need to do a better job of sharing our story. What are we missing out on? Oftentimes when a convention space is coming to Sioux Falls, it's not for you and I. It's for conventions, for people to come in from out of state. A good tax is a tax somebody else pays. And so when we're building that convention space, having that there is, thank you for the laugh, I appreciate that. But having that space and bringing people into town, filling up for gas, eating at restaurants, staying in our hotels is critical. We just need to do a better job of showing the public that there is a need and bringing the public alongside.
Right, and we're actually going to continue on that thought next and talk a little more about the visitor industry, because peer cities are investing aggressively to attract conferences, business travel, multi-day events, those things that consistently drive weekday activity. Jamie, you're up first with this one. How should Sioux Falls position downtown to compete for that economic activity, and what infrastructure or amenities are required to do so?
Well, we're well on our way to doing that. And eventually, I was a build it downtown guy a long time ago. I'm for building it downtown eventually here too. We just want to get it right. And so we're on that. But no, we're well on our way to establishing ourselves there with all the upgrades that we've had to our downtown and just how good it feels to be down there. I know our Convention and Visitors Bureau loves selling our downtown. And they say that it makes their job a whole lot easier. And a new convention center down there would definitely help them. We want to do it right though, and we don't want to just do it because we think we have to now. And so finding the funding to do that, doing the study to make sure what we're doing is right and what is right for long-term, not just for this short-term need, but for the long-term need of our community, looking out 40 years plus. I think bringing back different forms of transportation downtown again too. I think I know it costs a lot, but we can look at trolleys and things like that again to make sure we're moving people in an efficient manner throughout our downtown.
All right, thanks, Jamie. David, your thoughts on the visitor industry?
Jody, could you check your mic and repeat the question, please?
You bet. Let me lean in a little bit maybe here. That'll help. So we're talking about how other cities are investing aggressively to attract conferences, multi-day events, things that drive weekday activity. How should Sioux Falls position downtown to compete for that economic activity? What infrastructure or amenities are required for that?
Sioux Falls has a visitors bureau, and I think they look at these kind of questions. I think I would just rely on their expertise. Good. And that's my answer.
Okay, works for us. We'll go over to Joe then. Thoughts on what more is needed to support the visitor industry?
Well, the number one activity that visitors like to do when they come to a city is to hang out where the locals hang out and shop and dine. And so what works well, what has worked well in downtown is investing in walkability. There's a lot of progress that we can still make on making downtown a more walkable place. It is the most walkable neighborhood, but there's more we can do. Mobility options as well. With Smithfield, I think eventually we are going to need a shuttle of some kind connecting the core of downtown to the Smithfield redevelopment. That's years out. I do sort of look at the convention industry with a little bit of a raised eyebrow, just because it is not as strong as it used to be prior to COVID. That industry has maybe stumbled a little bit in recent years. So I'm not necessarily all in on convention center. It needs a closer look.
Okay. And Christine.
Thank you. Well, I would say we need to keep doing what we're doing well. We're doing it well. With the DTSF promoting our downtown, as well as working with the Experience Sioux Falls, we are doing a great job. If any of you went to the Summit Tournament a couple weeks ago and how they had some activities downtown, bringing you in, maybe taking you to the convention space for the games, bringing you back. That collaboration with DTSF, Experience Sioux Falls, our Sioux Falls Chamber, our state chamber, those partners together, collaborating together to making sure that our downtown is vibrant and well-positioned long into the future. You know, when we've had some really big concerts down at the Premier Center, sometimes they'll have the shuttles to bring you back and forth. It's just a little bit out of the way that there's not a lot to do down there unless you're going to one or two of the restaurants. And so that connectivity of working together with DTSF, Experience Sioux Falls, and the Sioux Falls Chamber is, I think, what makes us grow in that area even better.
Greg, you've got the last one on this.
So I currently serve as the chair of the bid board, and that's the tax dollars that you pay when you stay at a hotel. And by far, the number one way to increase revenues for our community is to build a convention center downtown. That's our golden goose, if we could find one. The challenge is the location, the building spot. But if you get a large group of people coming to our community and then they get out and shop and spend their money, we all win. But to do it is a big challenge. It's our next big hurdle. Other amenities, I mean, we've got the Love It, we've got Jacobson Plaza, we've got it going on. We've got Falls Park. I mean, we got it. What we need is that anchor tenant, if you will, like a convention center. And I don't know if the Smithfield site's particularly perfect for it, but there are other opportunities. But that is by far the number one option that we've seen as a way to increase the vitality of downtown and our entire city, the whole tax base.
We're going to talk a little policy here. As you probably know, the city of Sioux Falls, the state of South Dakota have limited options for incentivizing economic development. So we're going to start this one with David. What is your position on the use of tax increment financing, particularly for downtown projects? And do you have any other ideas for how public-private partnerships could support redevelopment?
TIFs, tax increment financing. It's a property tax subsidy, usually granted to large projects, which are usually operated by large companies, which usually have rich owners. Now, when TIFs started out, they were more for blighted areas, but now they're mostly used as tax subsidies for rich owners, and I'm kind of leery about that. I don't think that the middle class and the poor should necessarily subsidize the rich. And people don't really talk about that very much, but it's a big issue with property tax. Hopefully, you can do things at economic levels that don't require subsidies. Like we talked about changing zoning laws so that you could build affordable housing without a subsidy. And hopefully that we can design cities so that you don't need to subsidize big projects with your property tax dollars.
Joe, your thoughts on TIF and other opportunities for unique public-private partnerships?
I'm in favor of the appropriate use of TIF, especially when it's to remediate environmental hazards or make a economically blighted area more vibrant. So I am pro TIF. I think that they can easily be abused in some cases, but I think Sioux Falls does a pretty good job of managing it. In terms of economic development, though, I'd like to bring some new economic tools to the toolbox, if you will. And I think one opportunity is with benefit districts. And so say if we were to build a convention center at Smithfield, a benefit district, the idea is to bond for 20-25% more than what the project costs, and use that to create low interest construction loans, not for the acquisition of land, but low interest construction loans, because we have Minneapolis construction prices and Sioux Falls rents, and this helps address that.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. So the use of TIFs can somewhat be controversial. I think they're a little misunderstood sometimes, but it needs to be accountable and measurable results. Oftentimes when the public sees, oh, we did another TIF, they just rubber stamped it and did another TIF. What you're not seeing always are many TIFs that are brought forward that don't ever see the light of day. I'll use the Washington Square for one. That one was one that went through the ringer. They had to hire an economist. They had to really prove the public need and that this property was torn down and it was, that big hole in the ground for however long. And so it was a blighted property. They just chose to clean it up so we didn't have to continue to look at it. That TIF alone went through so much scrutiny. And so for me, at the appropriate time and place, I think it's really important and an important economic tool that we have. Sometimes in South Dakota, we expect, hey, it's Midwest nice, just come on into South Dakota. Other states are rolling out the red carpet with incentives. And so it's our one tool that we have. We should use it cautiously and making sure that we're accountable and have measurable results.
Thank you, Greg.
I do support TIFs as well. Recently, you saw a TIF that was referred to the voters out in Rapid City. There's a good example of where the city went too far and the public corrected that measure. Sioux Falls has done a great job of managing TIFs. We really have. I was on the council with IC Vernon Brown here when we determined that those applications for TIFs needed to be going through the city council, not just the mayor, so that there was more oversight. And recently, with some of the changes in law that we've just passed, there's a third-party review and oversight of those TIFs, so we can assure that they're not willy-nilly and that they're being used effectively. But other tax incentives were sales tax abatements could be used to create some of these partnerships. And just remember, just the other day, yesterday, the mayor in his State of the City address gave us a notice of really I think it was almost $90 million of donations from individuals to help build those projects in our community. They love it it was a great example back in the day, but the Jacobson Plaza is a perfect example. And there's been a ton of those. And so continuing that relationship is very important.
Thank you. And Jamie.
Thank you. And this question I think comes about because of the Smithfield project and what's going on there, but also what we've done downtown with the use of TIFs. I think when used judiciously, they're an important tool to do what we do. Projects may have happened also without the TIF, but I know that they wouldn't have happened to the extent that they happened without a TIF being used. And I think that's very important to set ourselves apart from other communities and to be the best city that we can be of our size. There are other tools in the toolbox, however, that came about. Representative Jameson here next to me brought up something that counties or municipalities can opt in to a sales tax if they choose to for a specific project for a specific amount of time. Great to have that tool as well. Another thing we need to look at is land banks as well.
Thanks, Jamie. We'll come back to Joe for this next one. I think if you ask citizens to name issues that are important to them, it doesn't usually take long to get to housing. So we want to talk a bit about housing, specifically what's known as middle housing. So this is things like duplexes, triplexes, things like cottage clusters to create affordable options for middle income families and older adults. Joe, how would you support that type of middle housing?
Well, first of all, I think we need to explicitly put it into the zoning code. We have kind of a hybrid zoning code where I kind of equate it to a futon. Futons are bad beds and bad couches. There's some things we need to improve with the zoning. Missing middle is one of the things that we can do to help really move the needle on housing and explicitly call out those forms to be included in our zoning code. Now, beyond that, that's not enough. You need to also enhance some local financing options. One of the ideas that I think is really interesting is a community-owned bank like the Bank of North Dakota that was formed over 100 years ago to create low-interest loans for farmers. And look, we can build ADU, accessory dwelling units, granny flats, backyard cottages, whatever you want to call them, but the financing just isn't there to build those right now. And so we need to create that financial vehicle to get it done.
Thanks. Christine.
Thank you. So this year alone, there were just right at 357 single-family homes and multifamily units, just over 1,100 of those in 2025. And so when we look at housing and what the needs are and how it changes, I bought my first home when I was 24 years old. My son is 21. I don't think that he will be able to afford a home at the age of 24 like I did. was a long time ago, so I'm aging myself a little bit. But that American dream is a little bit more out of reach for our kiddos in our 20s. And so making sure that we're having appropriate changes, appropriate zoning, removing some of the red tape, and then also let's make sure that we are fostering innovation. There's a new project going up on the northwest of Sioux Falls. It looks like a giant greenhouse, and to be able to build homes in a controlled environment. It snows, it's cold, people don't want to work outside. This project is innovative, and it's going to change the way that we see homes being built right here in Sioux Falls.
Thanks, Greg.
Right, so one of the upcoming tasks is going to be the update the Shaped Places zoning, as was mentioned. And we can add that in here to, at that time, but, you know, it was talked about a little bit, the first-time home buyer piece used to be in the 20s, now the first-time home buyer is in the 40s. It's been an enormous task to reach that first-time home buyer. And it all relates to cost. All of it, affordableness to the home is related to the cost it takes to either buy the land, develop the land, build the home or the apartments or duplex, fourplexes, whatever it might be. And so managing those expenses is a priority, but most importantly, we have to update the zoning so that we can plan for those kinds of facilities, essentially, or buildings in the appropriate areas, and then people can start buying those and building those and moving it forward.
Jamie, your thoughts on middle housing?
First of all, 20 years in real estate, and this question is applicable back then and still applicable now. It constantly seems to be the thing. However, it has gotten much, much harder. As Christine said, it isn't the reality for folks anymore like it was for us. And my kids, I think, don't even think about perhaps even buying a house because it's just not going to be a possibility. One of the things that was talked about too is the financing options and how we do that. When we're talking about financing for these projects, whether or not we're doing something that regular banks don't see as conventional, how do we work our way around that to be able to find ways for people to get into those homes? Because ultimately, that's how people build wealth. That's how people build a nest egg. That's how we've gotten to where we're at as a society. And so much of a person's net worth is in a home when they own it. We don't want to not do that for the next generation. So we have to think ahead. Now, right now, we have a ton of entry-level housing sitting because the rates that they're locked into are in the 2s. They're not moving up. First-time home buyers aren't moving up. We're not filling that middle gap. We're not doing those things because of finance again. That will level out eventually. People have started to get used to higher interest rates, and we'll start moving housing.
All right, thank you. And David, middle housing thoughts?
The lack of affordable housing is no accident. It's part of the plan. Zoning requires a lot of big houses on big lots. It's going to be expensive. It's going to drive up the market. And this is really good if you're like into construction or if you have property, because it keeps the housing market inflated. But it's really bad if you have any kids who ever want to buy a house. So if we want to build affordable housing, we have to make it economically viable. And to do that, we're going to have to change zoning. And that we need to allow middle housing and little houses and big houses to get all mixed up. We need mixed-use development. We need compact development. Backyard houses need to be legal. You need to be able to put missing middle houses next to suburban houses. So it's really going to take some major design changes in the way we build communities if we want to get affordable housing. And that's the way it works. So that's what we're going to do. Change zoning, change design, build affordable housing, build some missing middle, and change the way we build our cities.
Well, we're going to shift gears now and talk a little bit about public safety, which of course directly impacts people's decisions to live and to locate businesses here downtown. We'll start this one with Christine. What additional measures would you support to build on the success of street level services that are showing to address nuisance issues and more serious crimes?
Well, I think that we're showing that the program in place right now is working. We have a group that is meeting people where they are. I attribute it to sometimes, having a law enforcement officer go up to someone is a little scary sometimes. And so having somebody that has more of that mental health capacity to help someone that might need that hand off where do we need to triage them to? On my time on the city council, I had the opportunity to help with the link. I got to travel and see some really neat projects across the nation. And that's what we brought back here is to really meet people where they are. And so I think law enforcement plays a critical role in that, but I think that we've done a good job pivoting to making sure that we have other people that are meeting those folks where they are.
Thanks. Greg.
Well, I just want to start off with public safety is my number one issue. Anybody who wears a bulletproof vest to work, to protect us, to make us feel safe, deserves the complete support of our community, the resources necessary for them to have the right equipment, and the pay that they deserve. So first off, we have to, as a community, continue to support those law enforcement officers. That'll help with recruitment, retention, and all kinds of reasons there. Continuing what we've already got going is great. The link, for instance, for example, is in a funding crisis. We need to fund the link. It's one of the bigger challenges coming to the new mayor. During the legislative session, we've been working with the Attorney General's office, the governor's office, Department of Social Services, all trying to find this opioid settlement money that we have access to. And we've worked with the Mayor of Sioux Falls, Mayor of Rapid City. We're trying to get this money to us so that we can fortify funding for the link, which is vitally important for all of us.
Thanks. Jamie.
I agree with the previous two speakers. The link, so important. Public safety, so important. I think the work that Chief Toom is doing is excellent. And I think that we have projects going on right now, even that we don't officially know about, that are happening in our city to try to make Sioux Falls a safer place, which is great. I also believe that through the projects that we've been working on with the new prison and then the recidivism study, passed a bill this year that tells the DOC that they can take a person home to where they came from rather than being let out here in Sioux Falls and staying here. That's going to ultimately help Sioux Falls with some of the people in Sioux Falls and the choices those people are making. But what about the beginning, folks? What about our kids? What about providing after-school programming for our children to make sure that community centers are available and that programming through the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, MB, etc., so kids early on in their lives make good choices and don't end up causing problems later on.
Thanks, Jamie. David, your thoughts on public safety?
When I visited the penitentiary a few years back, they told me that alcohol was the biggest driver of crime up in the prison, in the penitentiary. And they told me that right behind it was illegal drugs. Right? So what we're trying to do is incarcerate our way out of what should be a public health problem. And it's not working very well. We've got like the world's biggest prison system. I don't know if it's a bit number one or number three, but it's pretty high and very high incarceration rate. And it's largely due to this drug and alcohol problem. So the solution is to focus on treatment instead of incarceration. The state wants to build a $660 million high security prison. And if we could take a third of that and build treatment centers, we wouldn't need to spend the rest of it to put so many people in jail. And we don't really talk about this very much because it's too popular to think law and order, but how about being nice to people and keeping them out of prison in the first place? So that would be my focus.
Thank you. And Joe, you're last up on this one.
To clarify, are you referring to public safety specifically downtown?
So it's public safety specifically downtown, and particularly the street level services that have been
Okay.
shown to be effective.
Yeah, so, the first 7.5 years of my tenure at DTSF, I saw an issue where there was a gap. There really wasn't that street level service. And I spent that 7 years just trying to build buy-in and get people on board with renewing the business improvement district's methodology for assessments. That allowed us to champion the ambassador program. And I think everybody would agree that the ambassador program has been wildly successful. A lot of times they are the first point of contact for people that may be experiencing homelessness. And now we have that complemented with Urban Indian Health and their outreach efforts. I think we can even go a step further and provide more supporting staff with the police force, with community resource officers, community health workers to go out and to address some of those mental health issues that we see people experiencing on the sidewalks. So we have done good work. I think there's more to do.
Thank you. We'll now move on to safety overlapping with walkability. It certainly does. Pedestrian deaths, serious injuries remain a concern in Sioux Falls, including recent fatal crashes and hit and runs. This one will start with Greg. What specific measurable goal will you commit to for reducing pedestrian deaths and serious injuries during your term, and how will you report your progress to the public?
Nice loaded question. Let's see if I can unfold it all of that. Well, clearly we've got to make intersections and sidewalks wider, better light. I mean, I guess as a measuring example, I guess you've got incidences today that you could use as a benchmark, and going forward with changes made then, have we improved that or have we wrecked it? My take and my guess is that we can do a lot better. The challenge is we've got a lot of older spaces that are limited, and it's a challenge to find enough space and access and so that it's all safe. Those bump outs that we've done has been an attempt to slow traffic down and help mediate the issue. But measuring the results is going to take some time, but the effort really just has to continue to make all of those walkable spaces better and just not quit on it.
Jamie, your thoughts on a measurable goal as it relates to walkability?
Well, as we do with traffic and cars, we keep counts. We keep counts on where the accidents are, where things have happened, and where the frequent problems are. The problem with doing that is that the only way you get those numbers is for something bad to happen to somebody. And so we don't want to rely only on those numbers. You have to be proactive about it and get out there. I do agree the bump outs have been a success, moving the outdoor dining that we've done downtown and pushing those sidewalks, changing 3 lanes of traffic to 2 lanes of traffic in certain spots with the diagonal parking. All of those things have been done to help us be safer in those downtown spaces and to increase our living space in those areas as well. For those downtown businesses, which has been fabulous and creates an energy downtown that I think we all enjoy and people coming here thrive on. But yeah, it's making sure we know where the things are happening, what's happening, and then fixing the problem when we know they exist.
David, your thoughts on walkability?
Walkability, pedestrian friendly, car centric. There's a lot of things that we kind of tackle all at the same time. When you can make your new construction more compact, then you can have some space for cars in one spot and a barrier, and then pedestrians in another spot. To have things be truly walkable, you need to get cars off to the side. Because if you just have a strip and then a big road and then right next to it a sidewalk or a bikeway, nobody wants to use that bikeway. And there's a similar situation like that on Russell Street. 3 lanes of busy traffic and then a painted white lane for bikes, and I don't like riding my bike up there. It looks too suicidal. Really, if cars zipping by me at 45, I don't want to ride 15 on my bike. It's not safe. So you got to redesign the city to make it safer. It's hard to do that because it's expensive, but we need to do it anyway because pedestrians and bicycles are important.
David, back to Joe.
I think there's not many advocates out there, bigger advocates for walkability than myself, have demonstrated some great results. Partnering with AARP, doing some tactical urbanism to create painted bump outs. One of them was made into a permanent bump out between on East 8th Street by 8th and Railroad Center. So I know how to deliver results on this. Look, a lot of cities have adopted a Vision Zero approach. There's been some success with that. That just means 0 deaths, 0 pedestrian deaths. And ultimately, you asked about metrics. I think that's the metric. What is a life worth? I think that we need to look at it through that lens. And we have done some things to advance walkability and pedestrian safety. We have a complete streets policy. I think that that could be made a little bit more robust. One of the things that I want to do, though, is introduce a crash analysis studio so that when we do see a pedestrian death, we are looking at what the design flaws are with that intersection and then introduce tactical urbanism to improve upon the pedestrian safety for that site.
Thank you. And Christine's last up on this one.
So, of course, all of the things that were said before certainly make sense, but I think that we need to really reach out to the neighbor associations close to there. If you look at 14th Street, that has been the most problematic street that the neighbors that abut to that is our gateway to downtown, are begging for reform and change. They've met with the city. They've asked for change. We've tried some crosswalk painting and some other things like that. But if we can utilize those neighborhood associations with some collaboration to say, what is going to work for you? We had somebody who their dog got hit there. We've got to be able to slow the traffic. The balance with that is, we're all in a hurry. How fast can we get there? You know, the blinking lights. When I was on the city council, first thing, we hit every single green light coming downtown. And I joked with my son that on the city council, you get a little button in your car and it turns the light green every time. And I think he believed me till just a couple of years ago. But I share that we're in a hurry as a society. We're in a hurry. How can we slow that traffic down? It's with bump outs. It's with collaboration with the neighborhood associations and just making sure we're laser focused.
On this one, let's be mindful of the timer on this next one so I can fit 2 more in, guys. I want to talk about the arts. We're in an arts venue, of course. The city is developing a 10-year arts and cultural strategic plan. It's going to be released just a few weeks before the mayoral election. What is your vision for carrying that plan forward and using arts and culture to further define downtown as a place to live, work, and visit? This one we'll start with Jamie.
The arts are something near and dear to my heart. Besides wrestling in this room, the theater was another place I hung out, and the choir. I was a singing wrestler, football player, all of that. But the arts, my whole family, I got a kid that's a musical theater major. It started right here on this stage as well, but we need more. We need more opportunities. We have done so much when it comes to the downtown in arts. I mean, when we look at what Sculpture Walk has become, we expect it every single year. We can do things like that, though, at a larger scale. We can also keep that going and do the next one as well. What is that? We want to collaborate with the artists, have it be a self-determined projects within our community and elevate those art projects in our community, but let artists drive that and then let the city and the businesses support those artists.
Thank you. David, arts and culture.
Beauty, art, nature, they're really uplifting. It turns out that as people, we perform better and we're happier when there's more nature and more beauty and art around us. So, you know, it might feel kind of touchy-feely to support the arts, but it's good economically also. You know, anything that makes people happier and more content is good economically. So, and just because I like beauty so much, I include a landscape in all of my city council PowerPoints. They all end with a piece of beauty. And I think I'm really glad that the city has an arts council so that we can spread art and beauty through our city. And when we redesign new development areas, like for where Smithfield used to be, I think we should include as much art and beauty as is practical, because it's cool. I mean, who needs to get elaborate and give a cool, complicated reason? It's just really nice. It's beautiful, and we should spread it around and enjoy it.
Thank you. Joe, your thoughts on the arts and culture plan?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's honoring the will of the people that were contributing to the arts and culture plans. We'll see how that plays out, and then just making sure that we execute on it. But there are some things that have already been laid out in the downtown plan. There's an idea for art space, a live workplace where artists can live affordably and develop as artists, and that's something that I think is worth moving forward. I would imagine that's going to be incorporated into the arts plan. Artists in residence programs are another option that cities have looked at. But I think that there's a great opportunity to create a mural program for downtown, you know, something specific to downtown like that. We've got a lot of blank walls that would be absolutely beautiful. with some murals on them. And I think that'd be a fun idea to explore.
All right, Christine, your thoughts on the arts and culture plan?
Because I used 18 seconds too long, I'll be brief on this one. I'm excited to see the plan that is coming forward. I think that plan is what will guide us and what we'll need to invest in. Arts and culture goes hand in hand with downtown. It is very clear that those two just go hand in hand. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that plan, seeing what's forward with it, and see how we can continue to incorporate that in downtown Sioux Falls.
Greg, you've got the final one here.
Thank you. So I'm looking forward to the plan as well. I'm kind of like the opposite of Jamie. Jamie's into that arts and culture stuff, and I'm into pavement and asphalt. And so, I mean, the reality is it's just not my wheelhouse as well as it is others. But the reality is that rounds out our community completely. We need that piece. I know that, and I don't even color very well. So it's important that we support it, and I look forward to the report. You know, I was on the city council, like I mentioned, with the Love It when that came to town, and I couldn't believe it when they laid it out to us on what the city's investment would be and what they would cover. I was shocked at what they were going to bring to us, and so continuing opportunities like that, supporting the Love It, I'm all for that. I know a good deal when I see it, but I look forward to the plan.
Also, did anyone else notice that David is looking at David? I'm sorry, like I can't get this out of my head. And David, you're going to wrap it up for us because this is going to serve as the last question for today's forum. So also a bit of a closing statement, if you will. But the question is, if you are elected mayor 4 years from now, what are the most noticeable differences we, the public, would see in our city? How would Sioux Falls be different 4 years from now if you were mayor?
Well, I think one of the first changes is you would notice that there's no homeless people wandering around begging for money. I plan to get that resolved long before the 4 years are over. And then we'll see a lot of beautiful new development where Smithfield used to be. Oh, that's just going to be wonderful. And we'll see happy spaces and smiles and yeah. But and I think we'll see crime go down too because of the way we change dealing with addiction and alcoholism. Oh yeah, it'll just be a happier, healthier city.
Thank you. Joe, your closing thoughts.
You know, I think that the biggest thing that I want to make a difference in is with housing. And I think by many measures, we don't have enough. We've seen prices flatten out a little bit recently, but they grew 50% from about 2020 to 2024. And when young families can't afford a home, that's a problem. We need to make sure that we stay competitive as a community. And affordability has been one of those ways in which we have been competitive, how we've been able to stand out against other Midwestern cities. Safety is another one. I want to make sure that we're focused on those gateway crimes that can lead to more serious ones, that we are addressing that early. And lastly, smart growth, making sure that we are growing in a predictable manner, in a way that is creating financial resilience, enhancing affordability, and of course, we need safety to be a part of that as well. So that's how I'll make sure that Sioux Falls is improved in my tenure.
All right, thank you. Christine.
So what would Sioux Falls look like in 4 years under my leadership? Well, one, first and foremost, if you do not feel safe, you will not continue to grow your family. You will not invest in your business. You will not invest in your home. It is absolutely the most basic function of our city that we can do to make you feel safe. We've seen our crime rates statistically come down, which we should be proud of, but we should never stop trying to make them come down. Oftentimes, if we're not proactive, little things matter. Little things become big things. And so we have to continue to make sure we're focused on public safety in our community. The other thing is I recently sat down with several law enforcement officers. They need some change in peer. They need some help. There are some things going on in this community that we need to make sure that we're collaborating with our Attorney General, our governor, and making sure that they have all the resources they need, as well as the changes that the dangerous ones are not getting out.
Thank you. Greg, your closing thoughts.
Well, first off, thank you for coming tonight and listening to us blabber on about all these topics. It's a good expression of who we are and what we're up to in this race. Myself, I'm as proud as I can be to be running for mayor. I'm as proud as I can be for Sioux Falls. You know, I grew up here. I saw Sioux Falls when it was Mayberry, and to the powerhouse that it's become for this whole region and for our state. It's really a prideful moment when I come home from Pier and at night and I see the glow of this city. It's just really proud of that. For me, in 4 years, I hope that there's a low level of crime. I'm making public safety my #1 issue. Nothing else matters without that. Nothing. And so I hope you see low crime numbers. I hope you see that neighborhoods feel safe across our city, not just in parts of it. And I hope you also see that the tax dollars that you're spending are being spent responsible with accountability and transparency.
All right, thanks, Greg. And finally, Jamie.
Well, again, I want to thank you for being here and being informed citizens, coming to learn about who you're going to elect as your next mayor. It's super important. These are the biggest decisions you can make, and I'm glad you're here. People need to vote. When it comes to what Sioux Falls will look like in 4 years, after Smith becomes mayor, you're going to see better traffic patterns throughout our city. You're going to see a safer city, and you're going to see a city that represents the whole makeup of our city, where everyone has an opportunity in our city to be at the table. So we aren't going to represent the few, we're going to represent the many. Sioux Falls is a diverse community that is absolutely just ready to just take off, and we are, but we can do even better than we are today. You're going to have a vibrant cultural hub right here in this southeastern corner of South Dakota that is the pride of everyone sitting up here.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Well, that concludes my portion of tonight's forum. Candidates, I want to thank you for your insightful answers to my questions and for stepping up to run for office and giving us such great choices. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Brandon Hanson, the CEO of Downtown Sioux Falls, Inc.
Yeah, give it up for Jody. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for showing up tonight and engaging. It is difficult to get people to come out for events like this, and so it's just incredible to see a packed house with people who care about a conversation about the future of our city. At DTSF, our mission is to drive foot traffic to downtown through activation, advocacy, marketing, and stewardship, all in order to fuel the entire city's growth. We're very passionate about the city of Sioux Falls, and we're beyond proud to serve as the voice of downtown and to lead work that strengthens not only our district, but the city and the region that we serve. Downtown is really more than a place. It's an engine. It drives our economy. It fuels our culture. It shapes how people experience the city. And that's why we're all here tonight, because the decisions made in this election will directly impact the future of downtown and in turn our community. Downtown is the most productive real estate in Sioux Falls. It generates upwards of 30% of the city's tax base supporting services and quality of life across our entire community. So when downtown succeeds, Sioux Falls succeeds, period. So as you leave tonight, we encourage you to stay engaged. It's not just about tonight. Make your voice heard in this election. We got a few dates coming up on the screen here. Absentee voting begins April 17. The deadline to register to vote is May 18. And then election day, of course, is Tuesday, June 2nd. Please vote. Encourage your family, friends to vote. And before you head home, stop into one of the downtown restaurants and bars that are still open. Support the places that make this place so special. And thank you again for being here. Have a great night.